We live in a world where a garage is just part of a house. You need room for your car, tools, and things. But for hundreds of years, one group of people lived without them. They never built a single garage. Instead, they used one clever design that fixed 7 big problems all at once. And you likely have never even heard of it. That group is the Amish. And for centuries, they've built these incredible homes and communities without ever needing a garage. It's not that they couldn't. It's that they had something much smarter. They had what's called a carriage house. Now, you have to understand, this wasn't just a simple shed for their horse and buggy. That's not even close. This one building was their workshop, their storage unit, and a shelter, all rolled into one. Think about how we do things today. We have a garage for the car. Then maybe we have a separate shed out back for the lawnmower. And our tools? They end up scattered all over the place. It's a bit of a mess. The Amish looked at all those different needs, storage, work, shelter, and they saw a way to solve them all with one single, efficient building. This one structure streamlined their entire way of life. It was the key to keeping things organized and simple, long before modern garages were even a thought. So how did this one design fix so many problems at once? Let's break down exactly what made the Amish carriage house so clever. Alright, let's get right into the first, and maybe the most obvious, reason this building was so clever. It was a shield for their most important piece of equipment, their horse and buggy. Today, we think of a garage as a place to park the car, maybe store the lawnmower and some old paint cans. But for the Amish, sheltering their buggy wasn't just a convenience. It was absolutely critical. Think about what a traditional buggy is actually made of. It's a work of craftsmanship, built from carefully shaped wood, tough leather, and solid metal parts. These are natural materials, and they just don't hold up well when you leave them out in the open 24/7. Leaving a buggy exposed to the elements is like starting a countdown timer on its destruction. The constant sun beats down, fading the finish and drying out the wood until it becomes brittle and starts to crack. The leather used for the seats and the harness straps gets stiff, and eventually, it just splits apart. Then you've got the rain and the snow. All that moisture seeps into every little crack and joint. It causes the wood to swell up and begin to rot from the inside. Meanwhile, the metal parts, from the wheel rims to the axles, start to rust, making the whole thing weak and unsafe. Within just a few seasons, a brand new buggy could become unreliable and eventually completely unusable. And you have to remember, this wasn't just a small problem. The buggy was their lifeline. It was how they got to the market to sell their goods, how they visited family in the next town over, and how they got to church for worship and community gatherings. It was their family car, their work truck, and their link to emergency help, all rolled into one. If the buggy isn't working, their entire life is put on hold. So the carriage house wasn't some luxury add-on. It was a preservation tool. This wasn't about having a nice parking spot with custom doors and windows. This was about pure function. It stopped the slow, steady damage from the weather and made sure their most essential asset was always protected, always in good condition, and always ready to go. But protecting the vehicle was only half the battle. You still have to take care of the engine. And in this case, the engine wasn't a block of steel you could just turn off and forget about. It was a living, breathing animal. The horse. This wasn't just a pet. It was the power source for the entire farm and family. The horse was the tractor that plowed the fields, the truck that hauled goods to market, and the family sedan that got everyone to church. And just like any engine, it needed constant maintenance and protection to run properly. A horse left out in a harsh winter or a blistering summer isn't going to be ready for a hard day's work. They get sick, they get injured, and their performance drops. They need a safe, dry place to rest, with easy access to food and clean water. This is where the carriage house design shows its brilliance again. The stable for the horse wasn't in some far-off barn on the other side of the property. It was often built right into the carriage house itself, just a few steps from the family's home. Think about what that means. It's 5 in the morning, it's dark, and there's a cold rain coming down. You don't have to trudge through the mud to a separate barn to feed and harness the horse. Everything is right there, under one roof. The buggy, the harness, the feed, and the horse. It also meant the family could keep a close eye on their most valuable asset. They could easily check on a sick animal in the middle of the night, or be alerted by any strange noises. This wasn't just about convenience. It was about efficiency and security. By keeping the living engine on site and ready to go, The Amish ensured their entire transportation system was always online and protected. Now, a system like this only works if you have the fuel and tools right where you need them. And that's the next layer of genius in this design. The carriage house wasn't just a parking spot. It was a complete service station. Think about it. The horses' fuel, hay, oats, and feed was often stored in a loft right above the stable or in a dedicated section of the building. This kept it dry, safe from pests, and incredibly easy to access. You didn't have to haul heavy bales of hay across the yard in the snow. You just dropped it down from the loft. Simple, efficient. The same went for all the tools. The walls of the carriage house would be lined with pegs and hooks. This is where the harness, the bridles, and the reins would hang, all neatly organized and ready to go. You'd have a specific spot for grooming supplies, like brushes and hoof picks. Even the tools for maintaining the buggy itself were often kept right there. A hammer for a loose board, some oil for a squeaky wheel. Everything you needed for daily upkeep was within arm's reach. So when it was time to go, the entire process was seamless. You walk in, feed the horse, groom it, harness it, and hitch it to the buggy. There was no running back and forth between a separate barn, a feed shed, and a workshop. It was all one smooth, logical workflow, all contained under a single roof. This wasn't just a building. It was a self-contained system designed to make life simpler. But this building was designed for more than just a smooth morning routine. It was the hub for keeping the entire farm and the entire household running. This was the original all-in-one workshop. Because in a world without hardware stores on every corner, if something broke, you had to fix it yourself. And this was the place where that happened. Think about it. A wheel on the buggy cracks. You're not calling for a tow truck. You're heading into the carriage house, where you have the tools to fix it. Maybe even the spare wood you've been saving for exactly this kind of problem. A leather strap on the horse's harness snaps. You've got the leather, the awl, and the thread to stitch it back together right there on a workbench. This space was the physical heart of self-sufficiency. It was where you'd find a grinding wheel to sharpen an axe or a farming tool. It's where a farmer could mend a broken fence post, fix a plow, or carve a new handle for a shovel. This wasn't some weekend hobby shed. It was a critical piece of infrastructure, just as important as the barn itself. Every tool had its place, not just for the buggy, but for the constant cycle of repair and maintenance that farm life demands. The ability to make and mend was just as vital as the ability to plant and harvest. The carriage house guaranteed that when a crucial piece of equipment failed, the solution was just a few steps away. It was the place that turned a potential disaster into a simple afternoon's work. And that ability to fix anything was powered by another brilliant design choice, using every last inch of space for storage that worked all year round. Because farm life runs on a clock set by the seasons, the tools you need for spring planting are useless in the fall. The equipment for the summer harvest just gets in the way during the winter. You can't just leave everything lying around. So, how do you store all of it without building a dozen different sheds? The smartest carriage houses used a simple trick. They went vertical. Many were built with a really high, steep roof. This wasn't just for looks. It created a whole second story, a huge loft space that basically doubled the building's storage capacity. This was the key to staying organized through the changing seasons. Down below, you had your buggy and the tools you used every day. But up in that loft, that's where you'd keep everything else. Think of it like the ultimate attic. Sacks of seed for next year's planting would be stored up there, safe and dry. Out-of-season equipment, like a plow in the summer or a hay rake in the winter, could be tucked away neatly, out of the way, but ready when you needed it. This made the whole building incredibly flexible. In the autumn, a corner of the ground floor might be used for sorting vegetables before they went into the root cellar. In the dead of winter, it was the perfect dry, sheltered spot to store firewood close to the house. It wasn't a static garage with some shelves. It was a dynamic storage system that changed its job depending on the month. This one building was designed to hold not just the tools for today, but the supplies for tomorrow and the equipment for next season, all in one compact, organized space. But that level of organization and self-sufficiency opens up a brand new possibility. When you have the space, the tools, and the skills to fix anything for yourself, the next logical step is to start making things for other people. This is where the carriage house transformed from a simple utility building into the economic engine of the family. It wasn't just about saving money on repairs. It was about making money right from home. The same workshop used to mend a broken fence post could easily become a small woodworking business, building furniture for neighbors. The area where you'd fix a leather horse harness was also the perfect place to start making and selling them. This wasn't a coincidence. The design made it possible. The large, open ground floor provided plenty of room for a workbench and assembly space. The high ceilings and big doors meant you could build something large, like a cabinet or a chest, and actually get it out of the building when it was finished. And that huge loft we talked about? It wasn't just for farm supplies. It was the perfect, dry place to store raw materials like lumber or to keep finished products safe until they were sold. The carriage house essentially gave the family a built-in commercial space. The commute was a 30-second walk. It turned a simple farm into a diversified business, adding a vital stream of income that was completely independent of the seasons or the success of the harvest. This one building wasn't just supporting their way of life. In many cases, it was funding it. But beyond all the work and the business, this building solved a deeply personal problem that every single farm family has to deal with: the mess. The last thing you want is to drag all of that into your clean living space, onto the floors where your kids play and where you eat your meals.